have 5 level, 5% level of significance, 25, 50, 75, and 95, something like that. Then we go to this part, the frequency, pattern, cumulative, and all right. Then we scroll down now to this section is the variable, where we have the code 1, then we have overall, between, and within, mean, standard deviation, mean, marks, and total number of observations. Okay, starting from here, overall up. We are saying per code, we have the mean and the overall mean, that is from all the observations, the mean is 17, and it either 1 up to 33, then divided by the total number of observations, you get 17. Then the standard deviation is that the minimum value is 1, the maximum value is 33. Then we go now to between. When we're saying between, we're saying between my observations, a Burundi kit. What is the mean? Here, obviously, I don't know why they didn't calculate the mean. Anyway, then we go on to the standard deviation. The mean value is 1. There it's 33. Then within, I think I'm lost here. Okay, let me just get clarity on this. I'll do a write-up on how to explain this whole table. Not in that of Ringik. So our data is set as panel data. The next step is fitting the models, and we have got these 3. The pooled LS, the fixed effects with estimator, first difference estimator, and the random effects estimator. So we can run regressions for each and every one of these. This is for the pooled OLS estimator. I think this one, we're not really new to explaining this. Everyone is quite familiar with this. We can always do a write-up for that. Population averaged estimator. That's another different model. Again, it yields that. This one now, takona difference equity. Under the second observations per group, the average, the maximum, this wild chi-square, and the probability chi-square, and as well as the scale parameter. Those are included there. Then we go on to the between estimator. We run that as well. All these are different types of models that can be used on panel data. Fixed effects, I think. All right. So the fixed effects, or the within estimator, then okay, I'd run that. Then we go on to this one. This one is the difference version of that. So it yields us these results. Then we go to the random effect estimator, and there's a theta there. Okay. So with this one, of importance is here, the panapa pagan 0 up. it shows that the model is well represented, because you'd always want this to have a very high score. Kushowa kuti the model yako iri kufita well. Then the next part is testing the significance of the goodness of fit. The goodness of fit of the model, and it this part A. So we just run that. Let me just run it on. So the houseman fixed random. Then here we have the coefficients of the coefficients of B, or of the fixed model. We have the coefficients of the random effects model. Then the differences between that. Then we're saying okay. We're saying the fixed effects model is consistent under H naught and under the alternative hypothesis obtained from the X whatever, from that model at run, and it. Then we are saying the B model, the random effects model, is inconsistent under the alternative hypothesis and efficient under the null hypothesis. And it. So in this case, tikatarisa the probability of the chi-square value is 0.04, which is less than 0.05. Standard significance level, I'm sorry, Leslie.
0.05.
Yeah, 0.05. So at that level of significance, it means we are rejecting the H naught, and it. So if, pardon? Okay. All right, it's okay. 0.04 is less than 0.05. We are rejecting the H naught. So if we are rejecting the H naught, and it means we are picking the fixed model. Then the Bruch-Pagan LM test for random effects versus OLS is this one. And so we run that, and then it yields us this Ningrikini, this table. I'd repeated it here. Anyway, let's skip that part. All right. Then we are saying Isusu H naught random effects is not right. We look again at the probability of the chi-square, which is 0.000. This is less than 0.05. Yes, so we reject the H naught. Then let me just check.
So using your H naught if we're saying random effect is not appropriate, so if we reject it, oh yeah, so it means fixed effects and very appropriate.
Yeah. But this one isn't in doubt now because ndatotozvinyora last minute, so that's now to cross check with us. Okay. So I need to relook this last part in. Anyway, I'm almost
sorry,
done.
Leslie, sorry. I just need a refresher. In terms of the significance levels, are you saying just refresh me in terms of how do you tell that you're choosing the RE or FE based on the p-value?
Okay, the rule of thumb is if p is greater than 0.05, then we would go for RE. Otherwise, or else the opposite is true. Meaning, if p is less than 0.05, we go for the FE. No rule of thumb. It's like I opposite. Banana VIF, we take not greater than 10, and it, by sure could in a multicollinearity. Example.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
All right. Then I think we can follow because challenge it was about understand was good now hypothesis actually iri kuti chi ndopa nenyaya maybe the big issue pane mamwe matests akawanda, so yeah ndopa tinoda kubatsira ipapo.
Okay, yeah, I do get you, Christy, because interpreter sometimes you do get lost. But what I've realized is with starter kazhinji inowanzo kunyorera H note yako. Like you find pana papapatarana the Houseman test for fixed versus random effects model. Yatotinyorera here kuti our H note this one yakanzi difference in coefficients not systematic but challenge ndinozoona hangu inozogona kuitika ndeyekuti kuzozvinzwisisa kuti what exactly are they saying when they're saying difference in coefficients not systematic. So I think for the purpose of the exam kandofanira pakuda kuti you have your own list of ningirikin my H note akanyorwa in a way yekuti iwewe you understand them.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that.
All right. I think Nandangosarwa need just one last part. Recovering individual specific effects, and it. So we just run that. And it yields this list. So if we were to go back to look at our data, so we have we see kuti pane mamwe macolumns aederwa the estimated fixed effects, the estimated random effects, and then the alpha head. So for this one, you can see kuti alpha fixed effects head and it would put some observations. They're the same for each country observed, but then it comes pane mamwe countries ekuti inenge iri negative pamwe inenge iri positive. It just use that for you for this whole data set. Then if you are to go and look at okay, kuti mean yachona inenge iri meaningless, like with this value. So
guys, any questions? What
I'm really saying, Tanya, iripo problem is code. Exactly. You can get the code. but problem iripo it's in interpretation.
Because
That is where the whole problem is.
dodge. You can't dodge it. You can't interpret a change or lose.
Exactly, and I think that is where the bulk of the marks lie.
Yeah.
Kanye interpretation. So we really have to
polish up on that.
Yeah.
So I think zvinobvira kunzwisisa kuti H note ichi I think okay inini from my basic understanding ndiri undergrad but econometrics yanga iri yekuti H note it relates to something chekuti it nullifies it's like zero, like for instance yekuti random effect is not appropriate, meaning haisi kushanda. So meaning the alternative is iri kushanda, right? Ndo inenge yakuopposa, which is H1. Saka kana H not iri yekuti random effect is not appropriate, then we're saying what are we measuring it against? Maybe we're then saying saka OLS ndo iri kushanda kana kuti FE ndo iri kushanda, meaning
because the moment
part of H not here.
The moment the moment you retain your H naught, irikuti not appropriate. It means that you are adopting the H1.
Yes. Saka ndo pepe panonzi, if we want to adopt H1, we then reject H naught and it. And then if we want to adopt H naught yacho, toti sure zvabuda kuti random effects yacho is not appropriate. Alright, okay. If random effects is not appropriate, therefore we are then saying we fail to reject H naught. This is Angel.
Sorry, wandikasa a bit what?
Iona zati econometrics zidudzokorowa katu kana onyoronyo.
I actually zvinotondinetsa up until now. I
all right, since you're still beaming,
I always have to read twice.
Tendai chirao.
Hello.
Yes, wabvisa tatiri kutoda kushanda neyo, like handiti pakanzi H note yanga kanzi H note.
All right. Leslie, I was saying we can use this. I was going through this. I think I need to relook at this. And
right.
So this is the LM test, and that was done by some student and DJ.
Right.
So patukuda conclusion yake panapa, and we are saying here we fail to reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the random effect is not appropriate, and because we are saying that this chi-square is greater than 0.05.
Yes.
And so we are rejecting H naught and conclude that the random effect is not appropriate.
No. We are not rejecting H naught. We failed to reject.
We failed to reject.
Yes.
We failed to reject.
Okay, in layman's terms, to accept that H naught is correct, because Trukuti and conclude that the random effect is not appropriate. Remember, your H naught was saying random effect is not appropriate. Saka already was one. Saka asatizoti we accept, the we fail to accept. We fail to reject. Sorry.
All right.
And it.
Yeah.
Saka, I think like maybe what I cut rule of thumb yema hypothesis the equity whatever chaurku measure or chaurku as ita assumption chacho urikufanira kuburisa kuti chinoita 0 as in, like, all right, let us, okay, we can even we multicollinearity, all right, we H naught kuti there is no multicollinearity, period, and then H1 yacho means there is multicollinearity. Yo, it's straightforward ka. Kana kuti ye autocorrelation, H naught would be there is no autocorrelation, 0. So any H naught has to relate to 0 somehow. And then H1 yakuchi prove kuti, okay, whatever you're testing exists. Saka kana iri autocorrelation, multicollinearity, heteroscedasticity, in this case heteroscedasticity. Saka kana iri heteroscedasticity nechiti H naught inenge iri kuti homoscedasticity is present, and therefore H1 is heteroscedasticity is present. Yeah, something. Because chisingadiwi heteroscedasticity, chinodiwa homoscedasticity, and okay.
The comment that I just gave, I realized housemen ne-bridge pagani zinenge dzakati siyani pama H naught acho. Like housemen, the now hypothesis is that the random effects model is appropriate. Then now the alternate hypothesis is that the fixed effect model is appropriate. Then we bridge pagan H naught pooled effect model is appropriate. Alternate H1 yacho random effect model is appropriate. Ndokusaka apo pane wakabhime bridge pattern, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. In other words, we accepted the null hypothesis. And look at what the null hypothesis is. The random effect is not appropriate. Yaitaka kupinduridza the other one.
Ayo, patukatesa kwawabva kwesokoka random effect okay, if I'm not mistaken, he had said for yange taroti unotora the other model. In other words, yango piringisha ma words, as it was saying the same thing. Ava vangodgara vangota isa kuti random effects is not appropriate, then it's appropriate per H1. But kune imwe yacho yawataura yange ichitaura kuti the other model is appropriate, meaning random effects is not appropriate. It's still H naught, in other words. All right. I think tapedza kana pane ane mubvunzo, but I think what I just have to tell people is we need to brush up on our H naughts and H1s, because ndo anobatsira kuti tigone kuinterpreta zvizhinji zvacho izvo chete. Thanks, guys.
Angel, can you please share that PDF that you just beaming?
Oh, yeah. Okay, it's fine.
Thank you.
That's not the downloader. Let me download. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to okay, the other thing that I wanted to note is when you get like my code young and it's quite simple. You just change this part and you change up your time variables, your global IDs and things like that. Could remake your data set. After that, everything flows. So you won't have really much of a hard time with this one. chinenge chazongosara chete inyaya interpretation. So yeah, that's about it. Chairperson, over to you.
Thank you, Angie. I think we can move on to the next question. Hannah, are you ready to present? Hello, Hannah.
Ndakanyarara zvangu ndabva kuti Hannah naJones ndangoti
Sorry, ndandachandisara kare ndandaripita Jones.
okay. Machine wangu uri kuramba uri start. So what I've done is I've prepared this document that I'm going to share, and we'll go through it. Then if there's someone who can help me with the practical aspect, I'm hoping good. By the time I finish with this theoretical part, so let me try to share my screen. Where's my mic? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Vatete document iri mashare here.
Handisi kushare, handisi kuda nedata rangu. Ndezvunhu zvangu handisi kushare. Asi ndashare, I'll share it. Ndandichimbori editor. Usadaro unoziva. I'll share it just now. Ndandichimbori editor. So linear regression analysis using stat. Nyaya ingoripo linear regression ndeyekuti to test for linear regression pane ma7 assumptions anofangwa that you underpin. I mean that underpin linear regression. And kuti tizoti linear regression inoita tinofanira kufamba nawo one by one in their order, especially from the third to the seventh one. Hatigoni kutanga kuita the fifth one tisati taita the third one. I guess that's the most important. Hanzi, there are 7 assumptions that underpin linear regression. If any of those 7 assumptions are not met, you cannot analyze your data using linear because you will not get a valid result. Since assumption 1 and 2 relate to your choice of variables,
they cannot be tested using stata or stata. However, you should decide whether your study meets these assumptions before moving on. So your independent variable should be measured at the continuous level. So this is a dependent variable. We're talking of examples like height measured in feet or inches, temperature, degrees Celsius, salary, revision time, intelligence, that's IQ, reaction time, test performance, sales measured in number of transactions per month, and so forth. If you're unsure, this part I don't think it's necessary, I'll delete it. So we are saying, though that's the nature of my dependent variables. Achitora that shape, which is on it's a dependent variable. Then assumption number 2, your independent variable, it should be measured at a continuous or categorical level. However, if you have a categorical independent variable, it is more common to use the independent variable test for 2 groups. Like, rana stata yangu, so what did we say? But that is an observation you could see. But there's an option, let me try to open it. It's what I'm buying, but pana pakanzi statistics up. And murukuona this part of my screen here. Hello.
Yes, we can see document. Word
Right.
document.
Starter yangu yandavhura izvezvi muri kuona here.
Aiwa. Wangoti not choose the
You
entire
only share the
Entire screen
you
not
only share the window.
Aiwa, ingodzima WhatsApp.
WhatsApp haitorina basa.
Tinoziva
Okay.
kuti nezvipande. Dzimai WhatsApp.
Kutaura natete sei wakadaro iwe.
Aiwa, iwe uri mukoma wangu iwe ndokuziva.
Respectai anti ukunikizeni.
Don't move always. Handitebi unoziva. Let me stop sharing and try to
Reshare.
nasi vanhu vanoonerera pano.
Apa riri chinongonyanya WhatsApp. Maybe ne-email. Kana uri that formal futi kuzvipande kuti.
Kameshini kangu kane nharo. Amunoti zama ndinorinyorera apa karotojamuka kushare. Ndipo nzishi chimauzombozvana. Ndaona mapotswa nedata imi. Iri kutoramba kutoklika share chaiyo.
Click entire screen. Share entire screen.
Pandokuzoda kubaya. Then pandoda kubaya share apa ndopairi kustick. Zvaramuka. All right, let me just share kustarta kwacho ndichingochinjanisa nchidaro.
Kana totipa code totry kurana.
Haisi kuda kuraniwa, pane zvandoda ngokuona. Zvandoda ngokuratidza ini.
Okay.
Okay, ndoda kuti mutarise apa pakanzi statistics handiti apa. Mukupaona handi. Dai kana.
Yes.
Saka apa pane pakanzi zvona.
Yebo. Yes.
Linear models and related handiti. Then there is yakanzi linear regression. Tikaclicka pakanzi linear regression handiti. Inototipa option yema dependent variables. Then like nda importa data adoption here handiti. Wakutochoose panapa utoti which one is your dependent variable, and kunoku ma-independent variables ako we'll choose. Then pama independent variables up, if you go up panema 3 dots up, inokupa option zvamuda kuda kuzotaura nezvazvo after this, ekuti is it a factor variable, time series variables, ma-polynomial variables, akasiyana ma-variables iwayo. ndo panda ndichida kuti mubate on this aspect variables. I'll stop sharing now and then go back to sharing window in information and so on.
Okay, Tete.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Pananda Udautaura Pakanzi. It is more common to use an independent test for 2 groups or one-way ANOVA for 3 groups or more. In case you're unsure, or examples of categorical variables include gender, e.g. Groups of male, 2 groups, and it no option to choose a male or female. It's another type of an independent variable. Then there's ethnicity, 3 groups. You could African American, Hispanic, whatever. Caucasians. Then the physical activity level, groups in 4 groups: sedentary, low, moderate, high, and profession in 5 groups: surgeon, doctor, nurse, therapist, whatever. So if you look at this, they are the examples of some independent variables. So, Anzi, fortunately, you can check assumptions 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 using STAT. When moving on to assumptions 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you suggest testing them in this order, because it represents an order where if a violation to the assumption is not correctable, you will no longer be able to use linear regression. In fact, do not be surprised if your data fails one or more of those assumptions, since this is fairly typical when working with real-world data rather than textbook examples, which often only show you how to carry out linear regression when everything goes well. However, don't worry, because even when your data fails certain assumptions, there is often a solution to overcome this. Right, like I've said before, can I test like my assumptions are from 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Set up to Shandisa start and it. Saka the third assumption there needs to be a linear relationship between the dependent and independent variables. Whilst there are a number of ways to check whether a linear relationship exists between 2 variables, we suggest creating a scatter plot using STAT, where you can plot the dependent variable against the independent variable. You can then visually inspect the scatter plot to check for linearity. The scatter plot may look something like the following. You can ID a positive correlation, negative correlation. A level. If the relationship is displayed in your scatter plot, if the relationship displayed in your scatter plot is not linear, you have to either run a non-linear regression analysis or transform your data, which you can do using STAT. I think how do you transform data? Saka, I think I don't know some other time. How do you transform a data receive linear? Linear. And this is what to say twice. Then the other assumption, there should be no significant outliers. My outliers last semester. So an outlier, it is a point outside my other data points. Like a mean score my data around 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 5. Because it meaning 98. 98 becomes an outlier. You find with 98 here, you're not going to kankanisira the mean yedu include mu data set trade. But if we remove the outlier, to know one of the correct assumption sorry, the correct mean data ratingichishandisa. The problem with outliers is they can have a negative effect on the regression equation that is used to predict the value of the dependent variable based on the independent variable. This will change the output that startup produces and reduce the predictive accuracy of your results. So again, fortunately, you can use Starter to carry a case-wise diagnostics to help you detect possible outliers. So I think Starter basically is everything. Kungofanira kuziva kuti kana zvadai ndodai kana zvadai ndodai. Ini handisi kuziva because Starter yacho handisi kugona kuishandisa. Assumption number 5, you should have independence of observations, which you can easily check using the Debon-Watson statistic, which is a simple test to run using Stat. And then the 6th one, your data needs to show almost skedasticity, which is where the variances along the line of best fit remain similar as you move along the line. The 2 scatter plots below provide simple examples of data that meets this assumption and one that fails the assumption. So almost skedasticity, inenge yakada kufanana ne the linear regression iyayi. Ikabuda yakaitawo zviri patakacheka pe-heteroskedasticity. When you analyze your data, you'll be lucky if your scatter plot looks like the one, either of the 2 above. Whilst this help to illustrate the differences in data that meets or violates the assumption of homoskedasticity, real data is often a lot more messy. You can check whether your data showed homoskedasticity by plotting the regression standardized residuals against the regression standardized predicted value. So basically what we're doing here is, I think it's important, ma words andakaisa mumabloko aya anofanirwa kuti munhu azive zvinhu izvozvo. Kana mazivawo mozondizivisa, kusina ndikuziva. Then finally, you need to check that the residuals, the errors of the regression line, are approximately normally distributed. 2 common methods to check this assumption include using either histogram with a superimposed normal curve or normal PP plot. And it. Saka now tauda kuita the practical aspect, though iri theory, because ndingoita panapa pa document rangu. The setup in state yachange tichishandisa ku tester for regression. Muriko here?
Yes.
Yes.
So I know Tatanzi, we're supposed to use the data that from the questions, but in starter yacho zvatobva zvanetsa. So there is this one yanga yakaitwa. What this person did, create those 2 variables, the time ne cholesterol. Yanga iri pakuti the more time munhu watch TV, increase my cholesterol level yake. So we enter the scores for each into the 2 columns of the data editor spreadsheet, i.e. the time in hours that the participant watched TV in the left-hand column. That was the independent variable, and participants' cholesterol concentration in the right-hand column. So that was the data ravanga vari kushandisa. So now the test procedure. In this section, we show you how to analyze your data using linear regression in Stat when the 6 assumptions in the previous section have not been violated. You can carry out linear regression using code or Stata graphical user interface, the GUI. After you have carried out your analysis, we show you how to interpret your results. First, choose whether you want to choose code or GUI. So that is my method. If you want to use code, unongo type up a code pako kuti regress dependent variable independent variable, then yobva yakuregresera. You know by now kuti starter is cancer sensitive. Saka kana paine capital letter, you're supposed to use the capital letter. Kana paine a small letter, you're supposed to use a small letter. And it saka pavaita regress the cholesterol time TV, then you enter that's how we run kustart antoita zvekuti enter. After entering the picture that is shown there, that's when you decide to use code. If you decide to use GUI, they're saying you do you go pakanzi statistics, when the pakanzi linear models and related, you go pakanzi linear regression on the main menu. I think they've got a diagram for that. Let me see if I have it. Super, it's there. Right. Saka tikuti unoenda pakanzi statistics, linear models and related, you click on linear regression. What click on linear regression yako, you'll be presented with the regress linear regression dialog box. That's the dialog box yatambovhura yanga ichikubvunza kuti what is your dependent variable, what is your independent variable. So you select cholesterol from within the dependent variable drop box and time TV from within the independent variables. So in the event yekuti unenge uine the variables or independent variables ako anenge ari handitati kune ma 2 whatever ma 3 ma 4 chingosiyana, you just have to change to suit the data that you have. So after doing that, there's another screen inozobuda yakanzi regress linear regression. Wafeed your dependent variables, wati cholesterol, the independent ukati time, then press OK. Click on the OK button. This will generate the output. So answer the output of linear regression analysis instead. If your data passed assumption 3, there was a linear relationship between your two variables. If it passes the 4th one, there were no significant outliers. If it passes the 5th one, you had independence of observations. If it passes the 6th one, your data showed almost cadasticity. And if it passes the 7th one, the residuals or errors were approximately normally distributed, which we explained earlier in the assumption section. So that's how you interpret the data. So according to raw data ravanga vatipa, that is the output yavaizowana issue. So I think kana uriwo munhu anotizivewo state, I don't think it's very complicated, but kana uchivhagwawo zvandiri kuita izvi unogona kungoda kunge uine chitunha chakaiswa mweya kudhara chinozongoda kubviswa from one, kubviswa kumadocuments chichiiswa padesktop musi wezama wobva watosubmita. And the output consists of 4 important pieces of information. The R-squared value represents the proportion of variance in the dependent variable that can be explained. I think you can just read through this to just how to analyze your data. But I think basically, ndonyaya iripo about linear regression in stat. I don't know if I was. Chitunha ndati ndikutoda chitunha chitori nemweya zvakaoma. Chitunha changu chifange chitori nemweya kudhara ndongochibvisa downloads ndochisa padesktop ndochisa.
I think for econometrics you need the codes that will run, and then you need to be able to explain whether it's commenting or interpreting those results. Chat. Otherwise, hakuna chitunda chinotobatsira. Chitunda chingatobatsira macodes akarana.
Makodzi ndo chitunha chacho, usina makodzi zvinobuda iyo. Handiti papapa like kana ukange utori ne-do file rimwe raungogara utori naro waungonotochinja uchingoisa zvikuenzana CSV file rano.
Pakuinterpreta apo ndoparikubata wakawanda anti.
Ini andozviona interpretation yandandiri kuverenga apa ndii nditongori nayo paside ndichingoitora ndichingoiisa pamwe.
Muchapikiza zvimwe zvanga zvitori correct.
So thank you so much. Back to you, Chair.
Tete wokusika share waka document.
That is very helpful for sure. Because even linear kwacho kwatachitofanira kuita, no one else has pitched up. Okay, I think maybe to move the session on, is Hannah available now? Hannah,
it's something that I think Hannah got a machine issue and there was something that was going on. I think atombonditi nini. Atombonditi ari kutry kuona kuti she was fixing something.
All right. Anyway.
I want to I think there's something chatting on.
All right. So maybe for the sake of progress, don't have the schedule. Nancy just told me to take off. Who else is ready to present? Who has any information? Can I pass in to fare the session? We go and at least have a shut eye. Wanomuka womuka. Wanongo continue.
The next question. Pataita ma lectures, taita ma examples atakaita. Ma diagnostic, ma tests ataita anga asinga violate most of them, right? Don't go to maybe 90%. They're not violating my assumptions. Because my surprises, my exams, I know gonna kuya. So challenge iripa issue kuti unogona kupiwa a data set oboita test rupara violate. Yet isusu atinomboita a situation yekuti taita an example yoba yaviolate but correct data ria so to continue. So for us yanga ingo restrict. So I know pane mamwe ari easy mod connecting yekuti unongo drop ma variables acho that is but mamwe acho of course I remember it's a practical. Saka zvinonga zviri kutheory saka unonga zvichida at least tine one or two that kana ta violate this one at least unobva wadayo photogadzirisa no. I mean kana paina akamboitawo ma sort of like ma examples and ari kuviolate then you correct the data racho then you proceed even tiri pa linear ipapo.
Pa linear pacho. Okay. Maybe just to highlight per multicollinearity, dropping is not the only solution. You can even choose to leave those variables there. And then because maybe Shakara multicollinearity actually engage exists, but it won't affect that much. So you can choose also not to do anything. So maybe for the linear aspect that Opsi was trying to was actually talking about. Anyone with an idea? Oxy?
Sorry, Les, I didn't hear your question. I was busy trying to